Dylan Fairchild has the knee. Look, hand up. I thought it would probably be a mistake to go back to him because you found something there in the Pittsburgh game. They went back to him, and he was solid, and he certainly gave you an opportunity to win the game against the Jets. He was a full go, still in the injury report with the knee. Flacco, we'll talk about him more in a second, did not practice. Shoulder injury. Hendrickson didn't go, has the hip. Unfortunately, it feels like this is something that they're going to be dealing with, and he's going to be dealing with throughout the duration of this season. We'll talk about the trade rumors here in a second there as well. Cedric Johnson has been back. He could have went last week. He did not. Full practice, has the calf. Dalton Reisner sick. He did not practice. Certainly noteworthy. We'll see what they do at that guard spot. They went with Rivers and Fairchild. Obviously, the two rookies last week worked out. Reisner showed you some good stuff there in the Thursday night game against Pittsburgh. Didn't practice with the illness. Cam Sample has a knee. He's been dreadful this year. He was a full go. Logan Wilson did not go with a calf injury. Marco Wilson also has been banged up. He did not go. Hamstring injury. Now, you look at the Chicago side of things, and this is where there's some optimism. If you're the Cincinnati Bengals, they could use a break, and they might get one as it relates to the injury status of lots of key members of the Chicago Bears, particularly on the offensive side. They're best receivers. I think their top 4 receivers here, as I'm looking at this, their top 4 receivers did not go. Luther Burden III, concussion protocol, didn't go. DJ Moore, their one, he didn't go. He's got a hip groin issue going on there as well. Odunze's got a heel. He's developed a great rapport with Caleb Williams. He didn't go either. So those are their 3 top guys. DeAndre Swift, their running back, he didn't go. And Roshan Johnson, their other running back, he didn't go there as well. Komet, he was limited with a back injury. A couple of guys in their secondary beat up there as well. And I think the general consensus here going into this game early in the week when you're not really sure about all the injuries the injury for Joe Flacco is it's probably going to be a shootout, right? I mean, the back end of that Chicago defense, no good. The Bengals obviously have been able to move the ball and score points rapidly in recent weeks, and the Bengals defense obviously has stunk there as well. So it kind of felt like it was going to be a shootout. But the question and the concern now, obviously, for Cincinnati is Joe Flacco. And is he going to go? And as I mentioned at the top of this show, you're down in the dumps, you're mad, you're angry about the jet sauce, and nobody's really talking about, is Flacco going to be okay here to play this game against the Chicago Bears? Make no mistake, it's a must-win game. We talk about must-win games all the time. This is a must-win game. If you lose this game, you are not going to the postseason. Not saying you're going if you win, but you still have an opportunity to, gain some positive momentum going into the bye and continue to build off that. They have to win this game. And Joe Flacco, it's a sprained AC joint in his right shoulder. I've never had that injury, but I've been doing some reading over the past 24 hours or so about people that have had this injury, and it is incredibly painful. And this isn't his left shoulder. This is his right shoulder. That's the moneymaker. That's what he uses to throw the football and push it down the football field. And he's a tough guy. Joe Flacco has always been just so tough. And, reminds you of Big Ben in a lot of ways. Obviously a huge guy. He's takes some hits, and he'll play through anything. And he did that throughout his entire career in Baltimore, and he's still going to do that here at 40 years of age. I'm sure they're going to, convene with the doctors. If it's up to Flacco, he's going to go out there and play. And Zach Taylor's remarks at his press conference yesterday wouldn't necessarily say it was intriguing. And I think it kind of sounded the alarm for a lot of people in the fan base of, this is a real possibility that he could not be active for this game. He commended Joe Flacco for wanting to be out there, obviously, and said it was just gritty and super tough of him to do this. And he did make an interesting point, and his point was that, look, Flacco hasn't been here long at all. This isn't like Joe Burrow not practicing throughout the week and then you feel good about him going out there on Sunday. This is a guy that's still learning the offense. He's still very new here. Do you feel comfortable about him potentially not practicing throughout the week and then going out there on Sunday and being a better option than Jake Browning? It's an interesting point from Zach Taylor, but I'll be very clear here, and I said this on Off the Bench, no disrespect towards Jake Browning, but if Joe Flacco can throw the ball 20 yards, roll him out there and let him be the guy, right? Because, you just feel better. I mean, you have to, right? I mean, look what this offense has done with Joe Flacco, and look what they did with Jake Browning. Just a complete 180, not even close. Confidence, the timing, the rhythm that Flacco is playing with, all those things, even if he's injured, will continue. Now, the accuracy, of course, is something that could waver. The downfield shots, maybe that is no longer a possibility with this injury. But if he can go out there and just, what's he doing? He's controlling the offense. He's managing the game. People like to say game manager like that's a knock on somebody. I've never understood that. That's the job of the quarterback, is to manage the game. take care of the football, move the chains. That's what Joe Flacco's doing. That's what he's doing at an elite level. And if he can go out there and that arm even has a little bit of life into it, and if he can, they can shoot him up before the game, make sure he's ready to go out there and battle through the pain. If he's in that kind of a spot, he absolutely should go out there and play this game. And we'll see, what his status is going to be. I would say he's not going to practice today. Like, it would surprise me if he practices here on a Thursday. That news will be out sooner rather than later. But it's interesting. It's very, very interesting because the whole mindset of this game and the game plan, in my opinion, like if you roll Jake Browning out there, is totally, totally different. Because if you roll Jake Browning out there, he has to be ultra conservative. Right? Because if he turns the football over at a rapid pace like he did when he was the starter for several weeks, you're going to lose. But then when you play ultra-conservative, that doesn't always equate to a lot of first downs. Maybe you're punting the football a lot. And with this defense, Bears probably going to find ways to score points. That obviously is not a recipe for success. So that's something that we're going to continue to monitor. My guess, if you're telling me right now as we're doing this live, 11:15 on a Thursday, I think he will be a game-time decision, and I think he will try to give it a go in this game. That's just my guess. And then you have an opportunity with the bye week to potentially get a little bit healthier. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know how long these things linger, how long they last, but I don't really think this is something that is lingering. I think this is something that hurts and hurts really bad and is really, really painful. And we'll see if he's able to, fight through it and be available for his team out there on Sunday. No one questioning the toughness of Joe Flacco. Again, Zach Taylor said he wants to play. He's adamant that he wants to play and try to give it a go. Maybe the doctors will protect him a little bit, but this is do or die, right? This isn't like, oh, yeah, we'll protect you here and then bring you back for after the bye. It's like, well, if you don't play this game and we lose, I mean, there is really no after the bye. Obviously, there's games that you have to play and livelihoods and whatnot that's still on the line. But your season, for all intents and purposes, when it relates to trying to make the postseason and get Joe Burrow back, is pretty much dead. So if you can go out there and even have a little bit of life in that arm, I think he's going to be a better option than Jake Browning. And I think that's something that certainly is very noteworthy. And we'll see. I wouldn't expect a decision anytime soon. Again, my gut says game time decision. Then he'll go out there and try to go. They're giving Browning lots of reps in practice. And is there a possibility that if they go to Browning, the 2 weeks off kind of helped him out? He could recollect his thoughts, get a little bit healthier, and then go out there and maybe execute, learn from Flacco. I don't know, right? Not a lot of people have confidence in that, given what he put out on the football field over the course of the few games that he was the starter. But hopefully that's something that we're not dealing with here at this point, because it's a 2.5-point spread. But if it's not Joe Flacco and it's Jake Browning, I mean, to me, it's like 6.5, 7 point spread, to be completely honest with you. But very noteworthy injury the Bengals obviously are monitoring, and we all are very, very closely. The other one, of course, is Trey Hendrickson. Paul Dehner Jr. obviously does a terrific job covering the Cincinnati Bengals for The Athletic. He had some stats, and I've been saying this, for a long time this year, and I didn't really have the numbers to back it up. But just from the eye test, everyone says, oh, this defense stinks. Obviously, it does. That's the case. We all know that. We all understand that. But when Trey Hendrickson has not been out on the field, it's been even significantly worse, which is really hard to wrap your head around. And we sat here and theorized this offseason like, well, if you let Trey Hendrickson go, you trade him. Could it really be that much worse without him? It was already awful last year. Could it be that much worse? Well, the answer is yes. It could be a heck of a lot worse, and you're seeing that this year in the games that he wasn't able to play, right? Second half against Green Bay, your defense completely falls apart, can't get a stop. Now, on the road, I would argue Green Bay is one of the best teams in the league. That's fine, right? But then Pittsburgh, right? A team that, Aaron Rodgers is playing at a high level right now and is doing a good job running the offense, but, not stopping them whatsoever. Serious issue. Second half against the Jets and Justin Fields. Can't get a stop. No Trey Hendrickson. So here's some of the numbers here from Paul Dehner Jr. for when Trey Hendrickson is on the field this year and off the field this year. Yards per play, 5.7 you're giving up with him on the field, 6.8 with him off. More than a full yard of difference. Yards per attempt, 7.3 when he's on, 8.5 when he is off. Yards per rush. And Trey Hendrickson, of course, is not a run stopper by any stretch of the imagination. There's a lot of people that kind of riddle him useless as it relates to the run game. Well, the numbers would not suggest that. On the field, 4 yards per rush. Off the field, 5.8 yards per rush. And then this is the big one, obviously. Trey Hendrickson, a pass rusher. Opposing quarterbacks passer rating, 85.3 when he's on the field. 127.8 when he is off the field. So the numbers just completely jump out at you. This defense is bad, but they are significantly somehow even worse when Trey Hendrickson is not out on the football field. And we'll see if he's able to go this week against the Chicago Bears. But that kind of ties into my next point. Obviously, the trade deadline, November 4th, I believe, coming up. That's really only a few days away, and we'll see how the Bengals opt to handle things at the deadline. We've kind of gone back and forth on should they trade for a piece, should they not? Should they trade away a guy for some picks? You, of course, lost a draft pick. You lost your 5th rounder for the Joe Flacco trade, but you got another 6th rounder. There's decisions, obviously, to make for the Cincinnati Bengals, but Paul Dehner Jr. also came out there and said there's no way that the Cincinnati Bengals are trading Trey Hendrickson. And you can go back to the history of the franchise. I understand they've broke some tendencies here of late, right, the trade for Joe Flacco. But that was kind of like you had to. There was no choice. As much as you love your draft picks and want to hold on to them and, trust your draft picks, trust the guys you have on your roster, you had to make a move there for Joe Flacco. So they did that. And then last year they had some depth issues at running back, and they felt the need to go out and get Khalil Herbert with the trade in the 7th round. But trading a top-of-the-line player is not something that Cincinnati does. Now, I understand Trey Hendrickson made a mess of things this offseason and, was very adamant, banging the table. If you're not going to pay me, trade me, right? He said that several times throughout the offseason, a drama-filled offseason, per usual. Obviously for Trey Hendrickson. But when you look at the history of this franchise, there's only been, 2 trades when you have guys that are really good football players. And it was Carson Palmer and Carlos Dunlap, right? And those guys just made a complete mess, right? They basically were like, you have to trade me. And they made things really, really ugly for the Cincinnati Bengals. And honestly, the Cincinnati Bengals weren't left with much of a choice. They had to kind of move off those guys. Trey Hendrickson's not doing that here during the season. He was paid. He got his raise, $30 million, right? He's happy, right? And he's, hurt, obviously, here at this point. And there's people that sit there, and there's teams. The Niners, of course, has been one. The Eagles, the Colts, those seem to be the big 3 where guys in the media are sitting there saying, it'll be a great fit, for this defense to plug in Trey Hendrickson. That's totally fine. But here at this stage, again, the Bengals wouldn't be able to get as much for him now as they would have prior to the season. One, because they don't have much leverage because people understand they're kind of looking at Cincinnati's season, especially if you lose the Chicago game. It's like, well, you're cooked. You don't really have much leverage here. And I just don't anticipate Cincinnati making a move, regardless of, the offers they get. They couldn't get a first-rounder this offseason. I think if they would have gotten a first-rounder, they would have moved off him, but teams were hesitant. Why? Because he's 30 years of age. You had to give up a first-rounder, and then you had to pay him on top of that, and nobody in the NFL wanted to do it. So if you couldn't get a first-rounder for him this offseason before he was even hurt and was still the guy coming off back-to-back years of 17.5 sacks, then you're not going to get a first round for him here at the deadline. It's just simply not going to happen. If you get rid of him for anything less than that, I mean, maybe you could argue a second rounder, but are you even going to get a second rounder here from at this point? I think that remains to be seen. But the Bengals aren't going to. They're not going to quit on the season. It's not something this franchise does. They're not, overly aggressive or savvy when it comes to doing stuff like this. So the Bengals, they're not going to trade Trey Hendrickson. Shoot, we could sit here and talk about it a few more days here on the show, do a couple more videos about it because people all around the country are talking about it. So it's completely fine to do that. But just me to you, it ain't happening. They ain't moving off Trey Hendrickson. And then the Logan Wilson thing is interesting. Wilson, of course, requested a trade. Oh, yeah, the captain, one of your leaders of your team, yeah, he requested a trade. Oh, that's good. That's good luck. ESPN, we talked about the article. They dropped it, I believe, like 2 weeks ago, a couple of days before the Logan Wilson trade request. And the article said 60%, according to ESPN, that the Bengals trade Logan Wilson. And to me, I was just like, I don't get it, right? I mean, you're going with the 2 rookies right here. And look, it's the NFL. It's defensive players. It's linebackers. These guys get banged up. They get hurt. Obviously, hopefully, nothing happens to those players. But is it realistic to assume that Demetrius Knight Jr. and Barrett Carter are going to be super healthy throughout the duration of the year and not miss any time? No. All right, I think you could use some depth behind them. You could use some leadership behind them. You could use some tutelage behind them. Just, Logan putting him under his wing, saying, hey, this is how we need to do things. This is how we, operate in these team meetings, these position meetings. This is how we, go about our day-to-day. And I think all that stuff is very, very valuable. And just to move off him, I get he requested a trade, but what could you get for Logan Wilson? Now, there's some teams here that could use Logan Wilson. Shoot, I think the Indianapolis Colts, and I get it. Lou Anarumo, former Bengal guy, it just makes sense to say, oh, trade him to Indianapolis with Lou. I get it. But I think really when you look at the Colts, I mean, they're a Super Bowl contender right now. As weird as that is to say out loud, it's just the reality of the situation, and they could use some help at linebacker. But what could you get for Logan Wilson, right? A day 3 pick, right? And you had to work out how you would, handle the contract there as well. The Bengals recently gave him an extension. That would be something difficult you have to work through. So it would surprise me if you traded Logan Wilson. And CTB, I kind of put him in that same spot there as well. Obviously, what he has done this year has not been good enough. Same with last year. Benched repeatedly. Maturity questions, leadership questions, discipline issues, tackling issues, coverage issues as well. I mean, the list goes on and on for Cam Taylor-Britt. But again, he's like your third corner right now. We speculated that could it be Josh Newton. Well, Cam Taylor-Britt, all the turmoil that he's gone through, all the issues that he's had, I mean, this coaching staff still believes in him more than they do Josh Newton. At least that's what they're kind of showing us here at this point. So to move off him, again, DBs, somebody's going to get banged up. Somebody's going to get hurt. It's also what makes this Bengals, season so frustrating. Yeah, they've gotten really hurt with the Joe Burrow injury and the Trey Hendrickson injury, but beyond that, they've been pretty healthy. Obviously, Gesicki out as well. But when you look at the rest of the league, there's a lot of teams that are really, really beat up. And the Bengals defensively, apart from Trey Hendrickson, they have all their guys. Their guys just simply aren't good enough, obviously, at playing defensive football. But I would probably hang on to Cam Taylor-Britt, and then you obviously move off him after this year. There's no way that CTB should be back in stripes next season. Shouldn't happen. And, unfortunately, Logan Wilson, I don't think should be back either. But as far as getting rid of them at the deadline for a day 3 pick, to me, that doesn't do much for you. It doesn't do much for you. They have more value here as veterans, believe it or not, even though they've struggled immensely, than getting a day 3 pick back. Now, the two that are interesting, two former third-round picks, Jermaine Burton and McKinley Jackson. And McKinley Jackson has not even, he's played 5 snaps this year, and they haven't asked him to do much. He's been a healthy scratch, and there hasn't been really any off-the-field issues with him. It's just I guess this guy isn't very good. And that seems to be kind of the consensus here at this point, which you took him in the 3rd round. That appears to be a massive swing and a massive miss. I mean, they're not even giving him an opportunity, and they stink along their defensive line. And they stink so bad, they're like, we're not even going to try this guy, because we have no faith in him. So it appears to be just a swing and a miss there from McKinley Jackson. Could you move him? But what are you going to get back from him? Is somebody even going to give up a day 3 pick for him? He's done absolutely nothing in the NFL to this point. All he's got going for him is that the Bengals took him in the 3rd round. He played SEC football, was pretty good at A&M, but hasn't done anything in the National Football League. Burton, on the other hand, maybe somebody takes a flyer on Jermaine Burton, because the talent has been there, right? Obviously, the off-the-field issues, the evictions, the work ethic problems, showing up late to meetings, falling asleep in meetings, just inexcusable stuff from Jermaine Burton. And all accounts and all reports this offseason were that, Burton's in a good spot. He's doing the right things. He's acting more like a professional. And you're going to see Jermaine Burton potentially develop into the wide receiver 3 and take that spot away from Yoshi. And then Tinsley burst on the scene, and Burton's back to being a scratch. So that's very interesting to me. I mean, again, the talent is there, the speed's there, the physicality is there, and he can't even dress? That's just tough. That's tough. Because you can't sit there and tell me, and I like Mitchell Tinsley a lot, and I hope he's a receiver on this team for several years, and I hope he gets to work with Joe Burrow, but you can't sit there and tell me he's more talented than Jermaine Burton. He's just not. So is Burton still making dumb mistakes and not doing good things as a teammate and as a professional? I don't know. But I think maybe you could get something back for a Burton trade if somebody's got banged up there and they want to take a flyer on him. I think Burton has the talent, but it just seems like he's not a good person. He's not a good teammate. And he's not a professional. He's unprofessional, and those things are kind of working against him. But as it relates to Cincinnati Bengals and trades, I mentioned being okay with moving off CTB, but it's like, dude, I mean, all your DBs, they stink, and it's like if somebody gets hurt, who are you going to put out there? Probably not going to get much back for him. Wouldn't trade Logan. They're not going to trade Trey. But those two former 3rd rounders, McKinley Jackson and Jermaine Burton, they're healthy scratches for you, and they're not helping this team whatsoever. And that's look, the third round, I get it's not the first round, I get it's not the second round, but I mean, there's a lot of elite third-round picks in this league, and those guys just aren't even close. They can't even dress, and they're healthy, and they can't even dress. And as far as we know, McKinley Jackson doesn't even have any leadership issues, professional issues, off-the-field issues. He just isn't good. And that obviously is a massive, massive concern for this football team. So we'll continue to monitor the Bengals as the deadline approaches and things of that nature, and we'll see in terms of the decisions that they make. But my gut says it's going to be pretty boring. They're going to just kind of sit here and stand pat. They're going to hope they can pull off a win here against Chicago. If they do, their season is very much alive, despite what happened against the Jets last week. And, I'm looking forward to seeing the game. And hopefully seeing Joe Flacco out there. But it's like, well, Jake Browning goes out there. You just can't convince me that this team's going to win with Jake Browning out there. And even with Joe Flacco, it's like, well, he's not going to be able to push the ball down the field, right? He's not going to have that zip on his passes, which I think you get the receivers and the playmakers and the issues that the Bears have in their secondary where you can still overcome that. You have some semblance of a run game here, which obviously has been positive over the course of the past few weeks. Chicago not necessarily a world beater when it comes to stopping the run. So I think you're going to have some opportunities there. But yeah, it's just the quarterback position is so incredibly valuable. I feel so much better about a Joe Flacco at 30% than I do with a Jake Browning at 100%. That's harsh, but that's just the reality of the situation that we currently find ourselves in. So we'll see. We'll continue to monitor all those injuries. Massive game, 2.5. I think it opened at 1.5. Now it's at 2.5 at home in Cincinnati. Line still favors the Bears. And if you got the Bears at 1.5 and then it ends up being Jake Browning, you're licking your chops, honestly, if you're a Bears bettor in that situation.